Right. Why are safety committees important? We put this as a major point of emphasis in the TAP program. We give you a significant portion of your premiums back for having a safety committee and a few other things that go along with that. But why do we do it? Well, safety committees work. We believe that if you get a group that represents your organization, represents the various areas, get them together on a regular basis and look at risks to your organization and take action, that your whole organization will be benefited. It's also an element of the Trust Accountability Program. So to get that money back, you need to have an active safety committee. These don't need to be anything that is too time-consuming. You don't have to create additional meetings. If you already have a department head meeting or a staff meeting that you could add this into, that's fine. You don't need to call a separate meeting, but let's take some time on a regular basis and work together as a group. So with that, we want to welcome you to our safety committee. As you can see here, it doesn't take a ton of people to have a safety committee. We're actually missing a couple who are out today. But we're going to have the meeting and hopefully help you guys out. All right, anything to add before we dive in? Let's go. Let's go. Okay, safety committee. We always start out with an agenda, and that's a requirement for the TAP program, is to provide minutes and agendas from your meetings. And I was going to send this out prior to the webinar today, and I forgot. So I will send that out after. Sample agenda. It doesn't have to be anything detailed. It just needs to guide what you do in your meeting. Here's part of our agenda, and this is how we go. We want to track our attendance. Who was there? Who's being involved? And you may ask, who should be a part of the safety committee? Well, we've got our loss prevention department here, but we also have, who else, Brent's on our safety committee?
Curtis and Adam.
And which departments do they represent?
So Curtis is in the marketing group, and Adam.
We always start out with the same safety moment, and this month it's fallen to Brent. So we'll turn the time over to Brent for the safety moment.
Okay, so the other day I was sitting on the couch at home and doing what I normally do, watching TV, had the kids in bed, and I found myself looking at my cell phone, just going through different apps and playing around on there, killing some time. And about 45 minutes to an hour go by, and I realized that I had been staring at this cell phone for so long. And as I looked and I moved my eyes away, I noticed how there was a little bit of a strain on my eyes. And so I looked into that a little bit, and I thought, wow, how often do I do this? How often am I looking at my cell phone or staring at a computer screen for so long, and you're so intent on looking at all the fine details up close that it actually puts a strain on your eyes. And it's an actual thing that's called digital eye strain. And it's a real thing that people get from looking at things for so long and being so focused. It can actually put strain on your eyes. So I thought that's a good reminder for all of us as we're going through on our daily things that we're doing, whether we're working on a project on a computer, whether we're sending a lot of texts, or whether we're looking at Facebook or reading things on your phones. Take some time to blink your eyes, take some time to look around and look off into the distance and not put that extra strain on your eyes. I think it's a good reminder for all of us.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent. I appreciate that. The safety moment is something that we use just to kind of kick off a meeting, and you can do it in any meeting. A lot of organizations that are really successful use a safety moment in every meeting. And that's just to remind us of those things. So if you catch me staring out the window, I'm just...
There's reasons why.
Yeah, there's reasons why, right? I'm helping my eyes out. All right, then we talk about minutes. Why are minutes important? Well, let's just kind of track where we're going. So Brent, you were at the last meeting. You want to go through? We just had a couple of items on our minutes.
Yeah, so we did a risk assessment here at the Trust, a safety audit. And so we went around through the outside of the building and through the storage garage, and just looking for things like any other organization would do, looking for any type of hazard, looking for anything that could cause an accident or injury or, maybe fire, anything like that. And so we looked around and found a few things there from the audit, which we'll look at here later.
You found something at the trust?
We actually did,
man.
surprisingly. So that means we did a great job of looking.
That's right.
So if you're not looking, you're not finding. The other thing is we've had an emergency action plan that we put in place last year, updated it and put that in place, and we had some discussions about where the meeting place was, some of the procedures, what to do if there is an emergency, and then we upgraded some of that to send out to staff. So we had discussions on that as well, just so the people know, what to do if there is an accident, where they go and what they do.
Awesome. Thanks for giving us the minutes there. Okay. Incident investigations. We come to the next section of our agenda, and that's incident investigations. This is probably, in my opinion, the most important function that the safety committee has, is reviewing incidents, reviewing near misses, reviewing problems that have happened or could happen, to prevent those from happening again, or to prevent the occurrence to start with. And so this is kind of a I think it's the essential function of the safety committee is incident investigation. So we actually had one during the last month, and Doug, do you want to talk about the incident that happened and kind of give us an overview? We've got I put the incident report on. Let's see. There we go.
Okay, so we had a motor vehicle accident. One of our drivers had exited the freeway and was making a turn and was stopped at a red light waiting to make a turn, and he got rear-ended by another driver. And so, it was a situation where, the driver was kind of stopped, and you may ask yourself, well, gee, what can we do to avoid that? That's one of those common things where people don't think that there's really anything to take away from that kind of an incident, but we can kind of look at the incident investigation that we did here, and I think we can have a discussion about things that we can learn from this situation, and maybe even some things that we can learn and do as an organization to help our drivers avoid a future similar situation. So on the property damage investigation form that you see on the screen here, you can see that there's a description of what happened, the events leading up to that event happening, and then we also, have a section that talks about, what was identified as root causes. And so, do we want to read this in detail? We had the driver headed southbound on Geneva Road in Orem, was rear-ended while stopped at a red light at the intersection of Geneva Road and 4th South. The driver says, I was pulled over to the right of my lane as I anticipated making a right turn once the light was green. As I waited, a vehicle approached but did not manage to stop on time and made contact with the driver's side of the rear bumper. So the left rear bumper got bumped in this accident. So it was kind of interesting because the driver says that, the driver came up that hit him was moving really slow, but just never stopped and still wound up making contact with them. He also said that the other driver claimed, sun in their eyes as a contributing factor here. And so, I think those are a couple things we can talk about. Each accident can bear a little bit of fault to all participants. And so I think we can see that the other driver maybe had an issue with sun in her eyes and some things like this. But then I think what we really need to talk about is what does our driver take away from this or learn from this, and how do we share that with all of our other drivers?
And if I could make a point right now, Doug, in most cases, or in a lot of cases, we'll have the employee that was involved in the incident or the near miss come in and talk about what had happened. Because of the audience that we have today, that probably wouldn't be the best thing to bring our coworker in here and put the person in front of the big inquisition. So we chose not to do that today. But you might think about doing that if everybody knows that, hey, they're part of the solution that comes out of this. and that they'll have to report to this group anytime they have an incident. It makes all of us think a little bit more. So,
okay, so maybe we can just put this out to a discussion here. What are the takeaways from this, or what can we learn to help us, avoid a similar type incident in the future? Any ideas?
And you guys can type those in if you would like. And if they don't, we'll just talk. I'm not seeing a whole lot coming in.
Popping up right away.
So what was the cause of the incident?
Well, the report that was done by the employee and the employee supervisor, cited sun in the other driver's eyes as being a root cause. I think the real question is, since that's still putting blame on the other driver, is what can we do to avoid that? And I think one thing that's really important is that as drivers, and we include this in our defensive driver training, as drivers, even when we're stopped, we still need to be aware of everything that's going on around us, and that means making sure we're scanning our mirrors, that we're aware of what's coming up from behind us. If I'm stopped at a light and I look up in my mirror and I see a car rolling up on me that's not stopping, maybe there's some things I can do to get that driver's attention. Maybe I can tap my brake lights, to get their attention, or honk my horn. Or if I've got enough space, I can move up, and to take advantage of some space. So obviously, the cause of this accident is something that the other driver's doing, but there's still options that I have to try and avoid that accident. So I think it's important that we review those things with other drivers, included in a training, to make sure that, we are able to avoid other people's mistakes, as well as our own. I think another thing, we talked about this, not that it's going to necessarily prevent a collision, but, what's our procedure when we have an accident? Of course, a couple of years ago, we did a webinar on what do you do after a car accident. And, so this week, as fleet manager, I sent out a reminder to all of our drivers about things that we do, if we are in a car accident, to make sure that you're safe and to make sure that we get necessary information. One thing that happened in this incident that we're talking about today is the driver called me immediately from the scene of the accident, since I'm the fleet manager, and let me know what was going on. He also didn't think that there was any damage to the vehicle, or that there wasn't any body damage anyway. He thought maybe there was a couple parts that could just be replaced. And so the other driver and even our driver, at the scene of the accident, was thinking it wasn't a big deal, and there was discussion about whether they needed to call the police or not. And I insisted that he still needed to have a police report. So they called in. They actually didn't have a police officer come to the scene. They took a police report over the phone, but we have a case number, which protects us against the other driver changing their story down the road. So we get that statement, right at the scene of the accident. And that's important that we get that. Also, it turns out that the damage was more significant than what they thought, and so we have to be really careful, because sometimes we may have a little fender bumper like that, and we may get out and look, and if we don't see any damage, we may let the other driver go without getting their information or anything, and that would have been a mistake, because in this situation, even though the damage wasn't very visible, when we went out and talked to some body shops, we realized there was about $1,500 of damage to the vehicle. So we always want to make sure that even if we're not sure about the severity of the damage, that we still follow our accident procedures and get all that information.
Yeah. And just kind of wrap this up so we move it along. There was also another thing that came out of it, was as this employee had changed vehicles within the last while, the incident report form that we provide in our insurance packets didn't get transferred over to the new vehicle, and so we identified that as a challenge, as an issue as well. So, Brent, anything?
That's it.
So we always try to look for the root cause. What is the real thing? It's always easy to point the finger at the employee and say, well, it was operator error, they messed up, but we should always look at this, like I said, I was involved in an accident, and it was from a person coming up from behind, and I've taken a lot of, I've learned from that. Really, it's really important, your awareness. I was out in the middle of nowhere at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't have the appropriate awareness of what was going on behind me, and I took a pretty serious hit from this person. Wasn't my fault, but could I learn something in the future? Absolutely. Let's see, Brittany brought up a really excellent point here. She says, I've seen a lot of people pull out their phones at a stoplight. They aren't paying attention to what's going on around it. Any comments on that?
Yeah, definitely. Good point.
Yeah.
May not see what's coming.
So what do we do? Does driver distraction matter when you're at a dead stop at a stoplight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you could get out of the way and avoid it, that would save an accident. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, all right. In an effort to move this along, so we give you the time to do the remainder of your safety committee, we'll push along here. But we've talked about this one previously. There are a few things that we're going to do from this. Brent, do you want to talk about what our outcomes were? What are we going to do as a trust?
Follow up. We've got the defensive driving training coming up here at the trust in November, and we're going to encourage our employees to attend that as well, and just bring a reminder and refresher to their minds about being aware of what's around them as they're driving around.
Yeah, everybody that driving is a part of their job will attend that, and then the other employees are invited to do that as well. We're going to send out or verify that we have the accident report forms in all of our vehicles, and that those get transferred along.
And Doug sent out that email already about reminding staff to make sure they're...
Yeah, I sent out an email to all drivers, reminding them of things to do at an accident, and we also, in addition to making sure we have the insurance information and accident packet in the vehicle, also encourage drivers to verify that their emergency kits that we've put in all the vehicles, that they're in there and ready to go.
Stock. Great. Thank you. So really, I think incident investigations probably take up the bulk of our safety committees. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, it's the most productive thing we can do with the safety committee. But remember, your incident investigation doesn't have to wait for an accident like we had this week. If you've got a near miss, or if you have an unsafe condition, we see here from our minutes from last time that the safety committee's gone out and done an inspection of our facility here and identified, a half a dozen potential hazards around here that need to be addressed. Those are things that have an incident investigation done on them as well. Why does this trip hazard exist, and what do we do to get rid of it, and how do we prevent that trip hazard from reoccurring, for example. So you don't have to wait for an accident. All you need is an incident or an unsafe condition that exists to have a discussion on how to prevent, a future occurrence.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Doug. Here's a copy of the auto accident report form. We'll send that out to everybody that signed up for the webinar as well. 2 pages, and you should have received those as well in your insurance packets, as you've got your proof of insurance for your vehicles. It's in an envelope, and those should be in there. But that's a good thing for everybody to check those out. Facility inspections. Doug led us into this really well. During the last safety committee meeting, the group walked around and identified various issues around our facilities that could be potential safety hazards. So we'll turn it over to Brent to go through those real quick.
Yeah, so outside by the sidewalks that we have, there was some gravel that had been moved around, and there was about a 2 or 3 inch gap from the top of the sidewalk down to where that gravel was. Being that they're right next to the walkways like this, you could see if somebody were to step their ankle on that side, it could easily twist or trip on that right there. So we talked about getting some gravel put back in there and filled up so that it's level, so you don't have a place to trip on there. We had in our parking lots, we had some tree branches that were hanging low right in some of the parking areas. One was in one of the parking spaces there. You'll see some branches hanging low. Some were close to 4 or 5 feet off the ground, and so if somebody were walking, they could obviously walk into that or hit the tree branch, or even parked cars on the next one If you want to click to the next one.
Oh, I didn't have all.
Yeah, there's another
Yeah.
one too where a parked car could possibly get scratched or hit from the tree branch there.
Okay.
So that was one of those. We had some canopies in the garage where they were taken out of one of the trailers and they were stacked up, and they could easily topple over. And so we have some different things that we do for chaining things up in the garage out there. And so we talked about adding a chain there to support those when we take those out of the trailers. They get kind of heavy. They're a pretty heavy canopy. We had some generators and tables and also a ladder that we're setting there. We made sure that those were chained up and secured. We actually did that while we were walking through. We took care of it ourselves so that no one else had to deal with it. So that was a good thing to find there. And then lastly, we had some cardboard that had been moved around. We keep these under our grills, and the cardboard was right in a little path where somebody would need to get through. And the congested area there with the cardboard and the tables, we talked about clearing that out to keep that open so that you don't trip on the things there as you're walking through.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Simple things. This is another one of those TAP requirements is to do something to identify and correct safety deficiencies. So, so going out and doing regular inspections. You can do that as a committee, or you can just assign that to the different departments. And you know, we don't have a super intensive safety intensive environment here at the Trust. We're mostly an office environment with a little bit of barbecue thrown in. But we find things, we find issues, and if we're consistently looking at those, we can take care of them. So awesome, thank you. All right, we always go through training because training is also another requirement of the TAP, and it's an essential part of keeping our staff up to date. So here we've already talked about a variety of these, but we also Doug identified that it's been a while since even though we're doing CPR training, first aid training, it's been a while since we've done it for the Trust staff, and so we're working on scheduling that, so we're covered. All right, and then we throw it open to any concerns, open forum at this point of any concerns, the safety concerns that we have out there, to bring it up to the group and encourage people to open up their minds and not be scared to share anything. So, what you got?
I think driving's our biggest hazard. So I've been talking about what we have already is a good thing. Keeping on top of that, good training.
I think those have been good. The one I was thinking about was we've had some pretty significant construction going on in the street out in front of the Trust, and they're putting in some new utilities, gas lines, I believe, and they had all of that going on in the center median on Highway 89, right in front of the Trust, and that's made it rather difficult if you're coming from the north to be able to turn into the Trust and
even to go south when you're trying to get
out. And pull out, and so it's more of an awareness thing of how do we approach the building in a safe way. The other day I pulled on and I didn't realize that they put all of this here. I had to go past and ended up turning into a business to get here, and so it was more of an awareness thing of what's the safest way to get to the building if we can drive around the block and then come in. Doug?
Yeah, and that's actually something that I decided on this, and probably would have been good to have some discussion about that. I noticed today the pipe's gone. Finally, they were shoving it in the ground today.
Yeah, they were going in.
They were shoving it in the ground as you drove up. But I noticed, because I usually go left out of the parking lot here, but I realized I can just go back to the corner here, and the road will take us around and come in by the highway off-ramp right down there. So it's not a big deal to just go around the block rather than trying to make a U-turn out here and get around the construction.
But sometimes it's just a simple change in how we do things that can be beneficial to us. So just to finish up, we want to follow up on assignments that have been given. We didn't go through, as we were looking at the risk assessment that was done. We didn't go through whether those have been completed. I believe Brady reported that every one of those have been completed at this point.
He's got it going.
And so having a list of those and checking up each time is important. One essential part and one thing that we ask you to do, that's one of your assignments, is one to keep some minutes of this, and I will send our agenda out. You can use that for this time, but you need to add your stuff as well. So we need to set our next meeting date and time, and we try to do that on a regular basis once a month. And so what does that put us at? End of
August.
End of
or
October. If we,
Usually a Friday.
probably a
afternoon.
Friday is when we normally do that. That would put us at 28th of October. Doesn't
Perfect time to talk about some Halloween safety,
That's
too.
right. Okay. So we'll set that up, 10 o'clock on the 28th of October. And so your assignment now, as a viewer, to be able to take advantage of this safety committee is yours, is to set your next safety committee meeting. And it should be in October. It should be, so you follow up on that. Maybe not push it out even a whole month, but put that on the calendar and make that a regular appointment. Try not to go much beyond a month, because it's easy to lose track of what we've really done if we spread that out too far. Let's see. I think we covered.
That covers
in
it.
there, and we need to make the assignment for the safety moment. So Adam has the assignment for our next safety moment. He's not here today, but we'll let him know. And then send the minutes out so everybody knows what's going on, and follow up. Okay, what you got, guys?
I think that's good.
That's it.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, our goal was to be right about a half hour. I think we did just about that. Thank you, folks, for your time, and I hope you're sitting there with your safety committee, and you can take a minute to discuss how's this safety committee going to work. Who do we need to, if you haven't decided who all will be involved, decide that, make an invitation, get somebody from a leadership position, somebody who can write a check involved, and we unfortunately didn't have Steve here today. But it's important to have somebody from an administrative and management level who can write a check. If we come up with a great idea, but we can't pay for it, or we can't make a commitment to do it, our committee is not nearly as effective. So make sure that you've got somebody, you've got buy-in from management, and they're there to back you up when you come up with a great idea. Thanks, folks. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, go ahead. Oh, did I miss something? So with every insurance card, we should also have an accident report and emergency kits for every vehicle. Well, the emergency kits, that's something that we have done at the trust. That's not necessarily a requirement, but yeah, as we send out our insurance cards, we did this. We sent out the packet. I don't have one here. I should grab one. Anyway, it's an envelope, kind of a hard cardboard envelope that has the proof of insurance for the vehicle as well as the incident report. We can get you, if you don't have those, just send us an email and we will get those out to you. But check that in your own vehicle, and make sure that you have that information available. Thanks, Terry, for that question. I don't see any other questions there. If you have any, type them in quick. We'll stay on after we wrap here for a minute. All right, final word, guys.
Have fun with your safety committee.
Yeah.
Who brought the donuts?
Make it fun.
Who brought the donuts? Oh, we failed, didn't we? No donuts. We'll go get some M&Ms. All right.
One turn only.
One turn only. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your attendance. Have a safe day, and we'll see you soon. And come and I'm gonna.
Who's Lawrence Weatherspoon?